Only abandoned well in the area. We show you how many still exist in southwestern Ontario. Vaccine passports coming to Ontario in 3 weeks. The rollout and how businesses plan to enforce the new rules. We take a live look outside, cooling off as we start September. Nick Sirkovich breaks down the forecast tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for joining us. New recommendations from the health unit as Windsor Essex weathers a fourth wave of this pandemic. They're asking school boards to halt extracurricular activities. The Greater Essex County District School Board holding a special meeting right now centered around back-to-school protocols and extracurriculars. Outside, there's parents that are protesting as they try to convince the trustees to reinstate football. Dale Molnar joining us live in studio tonight. Dale, what's the latest here?
Well, Chris, as you say, last night the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board decided to follow a health unit recommendation and delay extracurricular activities until October due to COVID concerns. The public board is meeting right now. If they make the same decision tonight, it will also affect basketball at Kennedy and several other extracurricular activities as well. The Catholic Board, along with the Greater Essex County District School Board and the French Catholic Board, decided not to have football this year, partly because they say helmets were not certified for safety in time. Now, even if that decision were reversed, it would likely mean a delayed start to the season because there would be no Catholic teams to play because they, of course, just made that decision to delay everything. But Gino Facca and his son, who plays at Herman, thinks the delay may work in their favor.
Personally, I think that's going to give us a point to push on, which is, well, if it's going to be pushed to October, then we can get them certified.
You know, with this 4-week delay, we could still do our strength training and everything else, our dry land, physically distance, outside stuff, and then still do our football when the helmets come in.
Now, even with a month delay, Facca believes the football season could be salvaged. They would just have to play into December, which has happened before. Chris?
Thanks, Dale. CBC's Dale Molnar live tonight. Now, that public board meeting happening right now, here's a live shot of what's going on at this moment, as you just saw in our story. Speaking at the meeting tonight, board members are going to discuss extracurriculars along with those health care protocols in the wake of this fourth wave and the back-to-school push. When the board makes its decision, we will bring you the latest. International students are facing costly challenges to get into Canada this fall. Students from India can't fly directly into the country, a travel ban in place until September 21st. They can go through a third country, though, but they have to have a negative COVID-19 test. One student flying in later this month says that adds more stress.
It's costly. Second, it's hectic. Like, you have to go to another country, then take flight from there. And third, like, all the excitation, like, it has gone way down. I mean, in the starting, we were excited, like, we will fly, but now it's just not exciting anymore.
On top of all that, COVID-19 restrictions at each airport are different, creating more hassles for students.
My friend is gonna come in the next month. He have to take a lot of effort, like he has to fly to a different country and have to stay there, like take quarantine for a few more days, and then he have to flew back to a different country again, and then from there he have to come here. So like back when I came here, it's like $1,000 to $1,500 for a flight ticket, but right now they're paying more than $5,000 just to fly here.
People are paying 5-6 times more what we used to pay before the pandemic, and that's the biggest challenge.
Now, the University of Windsor says international student enrollment could be significantly lower because of these hurdles. The school is offering a number of programs virtually to accommodate the changes, and so is St. Clair College. More than half of its international students are expected to start the year learning remotely. The investigation into the cause of the explosion last week in Wheatley finally underway. The fire chief says heavy machinery on site working to strip away layers of rubble this evening. An advisory group has come up with a safety plan for crews.
That is the purpose of the advisory group on site, is a very methodical removal of debris is taking place. So the community will see action on the site throughout today and tomorrow. The rubble is potentially contaminated and obviously may contain asbestos and lead and other components from an old building. That's got to be tested on site, and then we have to look at how we dispose of that rubble.
The presence of gas kept any work from happening. Officials say it's no longer being detected at the site. Ontario Fire Marshal's office, they're leading the investigation, which is expected to take days. And it will eventually lead to another investigation by a technical expert, someone who's going to look for the source of that ongoing gas leak. The municipality says the evacuation zone remains and it's displaced dozens of people. No timeline for their return. Canada Post suspended operations at its post office in Wheatley, saying mail deliveries resumed in the area and that customers can pick up their mail at the counter in the Leamington office. Now, the explosion in Wheatley was likely caused by an abandoned gas well. That's what municipal officials believe. Now, these wells, they were drilled a century ago and spread across southwestern Ontario. I found an expert on the topic to answer some of those pressing questions in the wake of Thursday's disaster.
Well, this is a talk we gave. You can see gave it a year ago.
I went back to school, sitting through a 30-minute presentation on abandoned wells. Professor Dick Jackson, my guide, explaining a legacy problem that he says needs fixed.
Correcting the wrongs from the 20th century. And Wheatley shows you how hazardous those wrongs might actually be.
There's 4 in Wheatley, 2 drilled in the late 1800s, plugged in the 1960s. One of those pinned to the blast site. The third, not much is known. And for these 3, records don't have an exact location. It's like that for thousands of abandoned wells across Ontario.
3,000 wells out there that we don't know where they are, like the 3 in Wheatley.
Not properly plugging them can cause problems. The 2 plugged here could have been filled with tree trunks or cement. The 4th, plugged by the province in 2015, done through a provincial abandoned works program through the Ministry of Natural Resources.
If you can satisfy the criteria of the abandoned works program and you float to the top of their hazardous criteria list, you will get your well plugged, but don't hold your breath.
Locating them's tough. Some had the top casing sections dug up to use for other projects. Detection equipment likely won't work or will be confused by surrounding infrastructure.
You just got so much geophysical clutter, and the geophysicists have a hell of a time trying to sort out what they're looking for.
Here's what casings for wells that are old can look like. Rusted away, gas is leaking into, then out of the well, the mix of elements forming hydrogen sulfide. Jackson, who spent decades in the field of remediation work, says this is a problem for the Ministry of Natural Resources to solve.
They are depleted in expertise and they are depleted in funding, I believe. I don't think the Ford government has really put a lot of money into the abandoned works program.
Fixing the likely source of the gas leak that's kept people in Wheatley on alert for months won't be cheap.
They're going to spend $1 million or $2 million by the time they've found that well and essentially plugged it and figured out what they're going to do to prevent any of these other wells around Wheatley from plugging. And it's an enormous job. It's a legacy problem.
But doing nothing could cost a lot more.
The ministry has a duty of care, which they're acknowledging by, they've got a duty of care to look out for these things. Now, Wheatley may be an extreme case, but it'll happen in other places.
Now, I asked for an interview with the Minister of Natural Resources again today, Greg Rickford, his press secretary, telling me that he's not available. I've asked for an interview with the minister on Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. We'll keep asking until he finds the time to talk. Cases keep rising in Windsor, Essex. 51 more cases reported this morning. Active cases of COVID-19 have exceeded 500. About half involve variants of concern. 14 workplaces are in outbreak, 3 community outbreaks, a second at the Charro Club. All but one involve the Delta variant. And for those out in the county, the vaccination bus, it's going to be in Leamington tomorrow. First stop is the Princess Center, from 11 till 3, and then it's off to Seacliff Park from 3 till 7. Now, Friday, there's going to be multiple buses. They're going to be in Windsor. You're going to find them at the Ep Gardens, John Atkinson Memorial Center, and Forest Glade Arena. All those locations, they'll have service from 11 till 7. Now, the Premier said it was something that he didn't want to do, but today he announced that vaccine passports will soon be needed in Ontario. They'll come into effect on September 22nd at many non-essential businesses. A month after that, you'll be able to download an app with a QR code. Lorinda Redovkov has the details and the reaction.
There's no secret that
I wasn't in favor of this.
The Premier had said vaccine passports would create a split society.
We either do this or we risk shutting down the economy, which would even be worse.
Proof of vaccination will be required indoors at restaurants, gyms, and recreational facilities, sporting events, concerts, theaters, and cinemas, banquet halls and event spaces, as well as casinos and bingo halls. At nightclubs considered high risk, you'll have to show proof even if it's an outdoor space. Initially, for the first month, you'll use the current proof of vaccine already available. On October 22nd, a QR code and app will launch, or you can print out a paper copy of your QR code. More secure, easier, though something the Premier had said wasn't needed. Asked what changed, he blamed the federal government.
Every Premier wanted a vaccine passport. And unfortunately, the federal government decided to go to an unnecessary election, which I'm still shaking my head over, in the middle of a fourth wave.
Exempt from proof of vaccination are hair salons and barber shops, retail, places of worship, and youth recreational sports. This also isn't required for employees in locations where customers have to show proof.
Any business can introduce an immunization policy for their business and for their employees. The other piece of protection that you have within a restaurant, for example, is that every worker should be screening for symptoms before they show up.
I'm quite confident, actually, that some of these things will be reconsidered over time as we see more and more transmission in these settings. It would just be nice to identify those right away.
The opposition says, given some other provinces already have this in place, it should have happened sooner.
The Premier has obviously been dragged kicking and screaming to this point, notwithstanding what all of the experts were saying. So here we are, as I said, last minute Larry, and that's going to have an impact on our businesses. It's going to have an impact on our communities.
People with medical exemptions will be able to enter these non-essential businesses. So will children under 12, not yet eligible for a vaccine. The government says this is a temporary measure. How long it lasts will all depend on the fourth wave. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
One winery in the county says the addition of the vaccine passport is welcome, but there's confusion in how exactly they'll enforce it.
Like, how do we vet people? Do we have to hire somebody to be at the door to check all these proof of passports, the birth certificate? We honestly haven't had time to digest it. My initial reaction is this is very confusing. We're barely starting to get by with a shortage of staff. He's creating a situation which, while we like the idea of this, it's going to make it pretty hard for us to administer. I mean, if somebody comes up and says, well, I'm just going to go to your patio, well, then they don't really require proof of vaccination, but they have to come into our building to get to the patio. The one ask is, it should be faster. You've got 3 weeks to get this done. Why does it take 7 weeks to create an app?
The federal Liberals have unveiled their full election platform, including $78 billion in new spending, covering everything from climate change to gun control. CBC's Olivia Stefanovich has the details.
For a party slipping in the polls, this is a plan the Liberals hope will get their campaign back on track and the country on the path to recovery.
In this election, you have a choice about what the next 18 months and the next 18 years look like.
Warning of a future under a conservative government.
Failing to mention racism even once in his platform and ripping up $10 a day childcare agreements across the country, none of that is leadership.
While the Conservatives pledge to balance the budget over the next decade without cuts, the Liberals, in contrast, promise billions of dollars in new spending, including nearly $4 billion over the next 4 years to help first-time home buyers, $2 billion to transition oil workers to clean energy jobs, and $1 billion for provinces to ban handguns. Commitments the other main party leaders say could have been delivered earlier.
We see a number of recycled promises and some tweaks to a 2-year budget released today, with not a complete plan for our economic recovery as a country.
Why deliver on things when you can just campaign on it anyways? Why get things done when we can just promise it?
The Liberals also vowed to require provinces to make abortions available to everyone, everywhere in the country, a move forcing Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole to clarify his stance once again.
I will always defend the right of women to make health decisions for themselves and always defend the right of access in all parts of the country.
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau is trying to draw a contrast from his opponents on the price of their promises, noting the Liberals are the first to release a fully costed platform. The NDP and Conservatives say they plan to update their proposals with costing details once they're reviewed by the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
We'll take a live look outside. Some action on the Detroit River. Always fun when we can see something sailing across. Nick Serkovich joins us next with the forecast. Another great day of competition for Canada at the Paralympics in Tokyo. Canadian athletes picking up more medals, setting some records as well. Devin Hero has more.
Not one, not two, but 3 medals on day 8 for Canada here at the Tokyo Paralympics. Let's start right here inside National Stadium, where a short time ago, 41-year-old Brent Lakatos won a silver medal in the 100-meter race. He so badly wanted to defend his title from 5 years ago in Rio, but it wasn't to be on this night. He said after the race, "All I want is gold." He still has more events here at the Games. And earlier today, 35-year-old Greg Stewart from Kamloops, British Columbia, winning gold in the men's shot put event. He blasted into the stadium, soaking up the moment, and on his first throw under the bright lights, he set a Paralympic record. It was the best throw of the day. He was overwhelmed with emotion. What a journey for him, 20 years in the making, and he stood on top of the podium here in Tokyo. And finally, over at the Tokyo Aquatic Center, Orly Rivard winning gold in the 400-meter race. It's her 9th medal, and she did it in a world record time. In fact, she smashed her own world record by 5 seconds. Incredible. Normally, these world records are broken by the smallest of margins. Here today, 5 seconds. Rivard, a gold medal winner again. 4 days left of competition here at the Games. Devin Haru for CBC Sports in Tokyo.
Nick joining us now for a look at the weather. The heat warnings, that thing behind you there was a tomato. We got into some warmer temperatures, some cooler temperatures that turned into an orange. We're just making our way through the fruit basket.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
I don't know if lemon's a fruit.
Maybe I won't
so
put temperatures on the forecast now. I'll just put colors for you.
That's all it is. Yeah, we're going grocery shopping with you, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Well, you know, in the break, you were complaining to me about how it was cold. So I'm going to put these numbers into perspective. Today's high is 25.1 degree. The average for this time of year, 24.9. So you don't get closer than that to the average. So pretty much a seasonal day. But what we're not seeing, of course, is the humidity. There's a look at current temperatures right now. 23 degrees in Windsor, so it's come down a couple points. 26 with the humidex. So very little bit in the way of humidity. Actually, it's even less as you head further out toward the east there. Now, we've had a good deal of sunshine there across the region. There's a look at the remnants of Ida that are moving up the east coast. That's going to affect Atlantic Canada coming up over the next couple of days. But for southern Ontario, we basically got clear skies. That's through tonight. Same story for tomorrow. A little bit of high cloud cover moving through, and then into Friday, mix of sun and cloud as the system approaches. Saturday looking much the same if you're looking toward the long weekend, but as we head through Sunday and Monday, we're going to see at least the risk of a few showers for those 2 days. So of the 3 days in the long weekend, Saturday looks to be the best. Winds today up to about 20, 30 kilometers per hour. They're beginning to peter out as well as we head through tomorrow morning. So we'll see lighter winds. Overnight tonight, temperatures down about 13, 14 degrees in southwestern Ontario under clear skies, or mostly clear skies. Same story tomorrow, lots in the way of sunshine, 25 degrees. And again, that's pretty much right on point for the seasonal average. For the next 5 days, we carry the sunshine through into Saturday, mix of sun and cloud, few showers on Sunday, and Monday still the risk of a few showers. But I mean, I've seen long weekends worse than that. That being said, I can't be a long weekend without rain, so I've got to put it in there at least for
contractually obligated. That's
right.
The way it goes. Thanks for this, Nick.
All right, that's a look at the fruit basket.
Look at the fruit basket. Oh, I love it. Have a good one, eh? Now, when we come back, a pizza party in space. One of the most restrictive abortion laws in the U.S. went into effect today in Texas. It bans the procedure once a fetal heartbeat can be detected. It also allows private citizens to sue abortion providers and those helping a woman obtain one. Carolyn Dunn has the details.
Just hours after the so-called heartbeat law went into effect, pro-choice protesters made it known they weren't done fighting. As of this morning, 85% of all abortions in Texas are against the law. Abortions can no longer be performed after 6 weeks of pregnancy. No exception for rape or incest. Anyone helping a woman get an abortion, from a doctor to a taxi driver, can be sued for $10,000.
Texas has literally turned back the clock 50 years. So it's an incredibly dark day, not just for the 7 million women of Texas, but also to the 80% of Americans who believe that there should be safe and legal abortion.
The bill was signed into law in May by Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Our creators endowed us with the right to life.
The Supreme Court of the United States, now dominated by conservative judges, simply failed to respond to a challenge to the law, meaning Texas now has the most restrictive abortion laws in the nation. In a statement, U.S. President Joe Biden called the Texas law extreme and unconstitutional, violating 50 years of abortion rights established under Roe v. Wade.
It will significantly impair women's access to the health care they need, particularly for communities of color and individuals with low incomes.
Anti-abortion activists are not declaring total victory yet. They know the Supreme Court could choose to hear the challenge to the heartbeat law. But if it doesn't, this could become a template for other states seeking to curtail abortion access. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Washington.
As Ontario plans for vaccine passports, Quebec's system came into effect today. People will need to prove they've been fully vaccinated before they can get into many businesses.
It may happen that the small minority be unhappy, but I think that the vast majority of the population, they support the passport. They want to return back to a normal life.
Restaurants, gyms, and theaters are among the businesses where people will need to show proof of vaccination. That proof is a QR code issued by the government. People who don't have a smartphone can get a printed version. There will be no penalties until the middle of the month. After that, individuals and businesses could face steep fines for non-compliance. There's a lot of places that will deliver you a pizza with a promise to get that to you in 30 minutes or it will be free, but there are some places they just won't go. So the crew of the International Space Station, they had to do it yourself. A pizza party more than 400 kilometers above the Earth. Now, this video was posted by a French astronaut who says they had every topping except pineapple. Very interesting that that was left off. The weightlessness created a number of challenges for the orbiting pizza chefs, especially tough to keep the toppings on the crust when you're out there in space. I'm sure there's a couple places here in Windsor that would find a way to deliver a pie in the sky. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching.